Last night, news broke that a Liberal senator named Mac Harb owes the Senate $231,000 for false travel and housing expense claims. I mean, he lives in Ottawa, where Parliament is, but he's billed us $250,000 to get back and forth to work. How has the media party responded to this? How has Harb's leader, Justin Trudeau? Well, I'll show you in a minute, but first, a quick refresher on this issue. For a month, for more than a month actually, for months, for almost half a year, we have been inundated with stories about Conservative senators who allegedly overbilled taxpayers for their living allowances. Just like MPs, senators are allowed to charge some housing and travel expenses to Parliament. I mean, it makes sense. If you're an elected legislator from someplace hundreds of miles away from Ottawa, in Nunavut or Vancouver Island or Prince Edward Island, you can't really be expected to cover the cost of your own weekly commutes from your riding. That wouldn't be a problem for parliamentarians who live right near Parliament, even in Montreal or Toronto, but it would deeply penalize other regions. Frankly, it would force all politicians to move to Ottawa with their families and lose touch with their constituents. No one wants that. So this is so obvious it hardly needs to be mentioned, but I do want to say that the idea of reimbursing politicians for their housing and travel is important democratically. But what if you actually live in Ottawa itself, like right in the city, just a short drive down the street from Parliament Hill? Well, of course, you don't need a housing allowance or a travel allowance then. I mean, the point of those expense accounts isn't to buy you a free house or a free car. It's to offset new costs associated with your job of being an MP or senator. If you already live in Ottawa, you don't have new costs. Well, an Ottawa MP or senator could have legitimate travel expenses. It's true, because they could have real parliamentary business in other parts of the country or even overseas, but not just for going back and forth to work. Well, that's the policy background, and that's the reason given by the media party for criticizing Conservative senators like Mike Duffy and Pamela Wallin and Patrick Brazeau. The media party claims that those folks who represent PEI, Saskatchewan and Quebec respectively, actually live in Ottawa. That's the media party's argument. And that, plus a heavy dose of unsourced rumors and anonymous quotes, has fueled mega coverage of the Senate scandal. And I won't rehash all the Duffy stuff again. I'm sure you heard enough of that by now. If he did something wrong, if we misspent tax dollars, then he should and will be held accountable for it, I'm sure. The Ethics Commissioner is investigating. Even the RCMP has joined a larger investigation. I'll wait to see what they say. So enough with that for today. But yesterday, news came that Mac Harb, appointed by Jean Chrétien, who lives in Ottawa, who was a former MP from Ottawa, the very city in which Parliament is located, has inappropriately charged $231,000. That's almost $250,000. The Senate wants it back. Now, Mike Duffy paid back $90,000, but Mac Harb not only won't pay back the $231,000 that the Senate says he owes, he says he'll fight the Senate in court if he has to, and he'll use more taxpayers' dollars to hire his lawyers. Seriously, this thunderclap of news came out yesterday afternoon. It was too late to include in our show yesterday, but very much early enough to make it into today's newspapers. Now, some newspapers did. To their credit, for example, the National Post put it right on their front page. But how about the newspaper of record, the Globe and Mail? Well, look at their huge front page above the fold story. On the day that Mac Harb is discovered to owe taxpayers $250,000 for travel and housing, even though he lives in Ottawa, they have a story about Tory Senator Pamela Wallin stepping down from some corporate board, not for any bad reason, nothing unethical or illegal, no money owing. It's legal for senators to be on boards if they disclose it, which she did. But apparently a Conservative senator voluntarily, for whatever reason, leaving a corporate board is huge, screaming, front page news. That's the lead Senate scandal news, people. On the day a Liberal is found to owe $250,000 because he claims living in Ottawa requires travel and housing money, that's what the Globe put on the front page. Oh, our old friend Glenn McGregor of the media party, of Post Media, has an even more exquisite story to go after. A Conservative MP named Eve Adams a few years ago used Conservative Party funds for some cosmetics and some spas. Ha! Those chicks, eh? Can't trust them, goes the thinking. Well, Glenn McGregor is a bit of an expert in a woman's place in the world. Before he entered journalism, he worked as a DJ playing music at a strip club. So I guess he knows the right way to deal with uppity gals. Spas? Ha! Well, except the cosmetics that were billed weren't for her. It was basic items for the campaign, like soap dispensers at the campaign office. And the spas, well, yeah, that was actually daycare money for her kids while she was on the campaign trail. But hey, any port in a storm, right, Glenn? I mean, you've got a Liberal senator caught billing taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars for travel and housing while living just down the street from Parliament. The media party had to go into overdrive. So the Globe talked about Senator Wallin's unremarkable, unrelated corporate decisions. And McGregor did his investigative journalism special, putting some chick in her place. I bet it was just like the old days at the porn shop where McGregor worked. Okay, who cares about the media party? This is all predictable from them, but what about Justin Trudeau? I mean, we know what Stephen Harper did about the Mike Duffy thing. His chief of staff, his most senior advisor, quit because he used his own personal money to give to Mike Duffy to pay back taxpayers the 90 grand. That was Harper's response to Duffy. But what about Justin Trudeau's response to Mac Harb? Yesterday, the big news, was the total amount Harb is being asked by the Senate Internal Economy Committee to refund $231,000. But we've known for months that he was asked for at least 51 grand. That's not new news. So what did Trudeau have to say about Mac Harb owing the 51 grand? We'll take a listen.
If Mac Harb pays back what he owes, will you invite him back into the Liberal caucus?
Yes, absolutely. If he balances it out, for me, there's a real difference between what Mac Harb is going through and what Senators Duffy and Wallen seem to have on their plate.
Oh, really? Trudeau saying that all that's necessary is for Harb to pay back the money he inappropriately took, and all's forgiven. Absolutely. No need to resign in disgrace, no need for anything. Just pay it back and we'll pretend it never happened. Absolutely. And silence. The media party was fine with that line. Imagine if that was what Prime Minister Harper had said. And it's a good imagination exercise because Trudeau wants to be the Prime Minister. That would be his line. Well, apparently yesterday Trudeau had a change of heart. Here's his new line from the scrums just yesterday.
Apparently, Senator Mac Harb owed, going back 8 years, $200,000 in bogus housing claims. Do you still stand by the senator?
I have said that if he is cleared, he will be invited back to the Senate. But if he back to the Liberal caucus, but if he is guilty, he will not. It's that simple.
So now it's not good enough for Trudeau that Harb just pay back the money. He has to be cleared, as in found not to have done anything wrong, which seems exceedingly unlikely if there's an audit that's already happened and the Senate is demanding the money back. To be cleared, what does it even mean to be cleared? As in Harb's court fight? And even if Harb were to win in court, would Trudeau still be fine with Harb having billed taxpayers for $231,000 in housing and travel while living in the same city's parliament? If Harb wins, even on a legal technicality, say, is that cleared enough for Trudeau? This is the story about a media double standard, about journalistic jealousy against Pamela Wallen and Mike Duffy, two reporters who got patronage perks that the other reporters didn't get. And this is their collegial vengeance. It's about an anti-conservative bias that turns Duffy's alleged actions into the crime of the century, but can't be bothered to give Mac Harb the same attention as Eve Adams' daycare costs. But more than that, it's a reminder that the Liberal Party's flexible sense of ethics remains unreformed since their days at AdScam. Just don't get caught. And if you do get caught, well, just pay it back, which was Trudeau's first response. And fine, if you're cleared in court, that'll be good enough for us, because that's all that matters. That was his second response. Yeah, the Libranos are still alive and well.